Welcome back to Dubai Autodrome. Getting ready to send the cars out onto the grid, and for race one here in Dubai, 10-minute countdown is underway, and so you can see the marshals clearing the grid. Well, there towards the tail of the field, you can see Mark Thomas. He is on the last row of the grid. And our Masters drivers making up their final couple of rows here for the first race of Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East in Dubai Auto this season. So after a 30-minute qualifying session this morning, this afternoon's race will be 14 laps or 30 minutes, whichever takes longer. So front row of the grid after qualifying, with pole position going to Taichi Watarai. Here he is, the Japanese driver on pole for each of 4 races so far. And he has had 3 wins and 1 second position. Alongside him on the front row is newcomer James Wallace from Great Britain. James Wallace, the Porsche Carrera Cup GB young driver for 2025. Made his first forays into Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East last season, and he drives car number 9. So his first race of the Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East this year, and qualified on the outside of the front row of the grid. There wasn't much between them after qualifying. Both down in the 1 minute 59s, as was Caleb Sumich in third on the grid, just 1300ths of a second between the front row starters. There's Saud Al Saud. Now he starts on an all Saudi Racing row 3 of the grid. To his left, just out of shot to the bottom right of your picture, Khaled Al Ahmadi, the other Saudi driver, and there is Caleb Sumich, the Australian, who races in the colours of DHL team. So he lines up in third place on the grid, and Caleb is our other race winner this season. After being in contention in both races in Bahrain, he won race 1 in Qatar and finished second in race 2. Pole position in the Pro-Am class is Cedric Chassin of France, and he's in that orange, white and black Team GP Elite car. And alongside him on the grid, you could just see the dark pinky purple of Banksy, the other driver in the Pro-Am category. This is Alexander Vateva, 4th place on the grid for the Splendid Racing yachting machine. So Splendid Yachting, one of the supporters of the series this season in Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East. And they will be joined by another new name in the next day or so, being announced here in Dubai. So Taichi Watarai, James Wallace, row 1 of the grid, Caleb Sumich and Alexander Vateva on row 2. And here, 5th on the grid, on the inside of row 3, Khaled Al Ahmadi. So you can see those handily identical green and white Saudi racing cars. Green mirrors on the door of the number 23 car, so hopefully that'll allow us to tell which is which when they inevitably are very close together in the first couple of corners. little further back, car 10, Krista Andero. He on the right-hand side there with the green stripe and the dark grey nose. He is our Masters pole sitter. Alongside him with the white, gold and black is Peter Brecker. And behind the silver car with the multicoloured stripes, Mark J. Thomas. And the final spot on the grid is for the newcomer, Nikola Petrovic, the Flana Racing car for the Serbian driver. So the 4 Masters competitors at the tail of the field. And the Lechner Racing mechanics clearing the grid. Lechner Racing running the series from when it was the Porsche Sprint Cup right through to claiming Porsche Carrera Cup status. And Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East now season 3 for Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East, and really starting to gain traction again. Lots of drivers looking at the series as a valuable way of keeping themselves race ready during the course of the winter season. I was going to say off season, but there barely is there? Dubai 24 Hours was just a week ago. If you're a sports car racer, a GT driver particularly, there is actually quite a lot going on. So 14 laps, the race will get underway at 4:30 local time. You can see just a little bit of breeze, not too much to disturb the drivers, certainly not going to bring in too much sand, but it'll be a welcome relief, particularly given the shade in the grandstands as well for the audience. It's not going to help the drivers much though. Inside the cockpit, it'll be as warm as ever. These cars are a physical beast to drive. And it's always hard work, hot work in these cars, whether you are racing in Northern Europe with low ambient temperatures, or whether you're racing here in the Gulf states. It's certainly always going to be pretty warm. So countdown to the green flag lap inside the final 2 minutes now. Drivers keeping their doors open predominantly just to... you always think, I'll just open the door and that'll let some air in, but of course if there's no wind and there's nothing sucking the air in or nowhere for the air to go, then there's not much. So occasionally you'll sit there on the grid and waft the door in the hope that it brings, or it allows a little bit of the heat to escape, brings in a little bit of slightly less hot air. I think it's more in hope than anticipation of it getting cooler inside the cockpit. But nevertheless, everybody does it, of course you do. You're sitting there in a warm car, you've got your fireproof underwear on, you've got your fireproof overalls on, you've got your hands device, your helmet, you're bolted in so tightly with the belts that you can barely breathe properly, because you need to be absolutely moulded to the seat of the car. So lots of fans getting their cameras ready as well. And we are nearly ready to send the field away on the formation lap, just to make sure that everybody does get away nicely. It's another chance to try and build a little bit of warmth into the tyres. They'll have tried to do that leaving the pit lane, but then of course unfortunately sitting on the grid for the better part of 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So any tyre temperature they might have worked in has long since departed. Cars heading off on the formation lap here in Dubai for the first race of the weekend. The third race weekend of Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East, and the first of these 2 races this weekend here at the Dubai Autodrome. Leading the field around is our poleman, Taichi Watarai, and right behind him is James Wallace from Great Britain. Qualifying in third place, we have the car of Caleb Sumit, yellow and red of DHL with Alexandra Vateva's dark blue car. Then the two green and white Saudi racing machines. We're working our way down through towards the Masters category. Final four cars on the grid. Well, there are the two Saudi racing machines. Right behind them, Cedric Chassang and the pink Puce car of Banksy. Those two cars are the Pro-Am category this weekend. And behind them, a couple more pro drivers. Newcomer Josh Berry, the 16-year-old, and Max Muchlechner from Italy. But our pole sitter with a bright yellow nose, Taichi Watarai, looking for win number 4 of the season. James Wallace there, and then the yellow and red, Caleb Sumit, then blue, Alexandra Vateva, Khalid Al-Ahmadi ahead of teammate Saud Al-Saud, Cedric Chassang and Banksy following them through. And Chassang with the white, orange and black Team GP Elite colours, the first of the Pro-Am drivers, Banksy the second of them. And there, tail of the field, Nikola Petrovic from Serbia, joining in with the Flana Racing team for the first time this season. So 14 cars on the grid, 3 different categories, and the attention will definitely be on the front row starters with that dark grey nose and the yellow stripe James Wallace, the M-Tech competition car. He's actually the third driver in that second M-Tech entry. Alexander Hagenberg was in Bahrain, finished 10th and 7th. Keller Leon Kranz of Sweden was driving that car in Qatar, and he had 2 12th place finishes. So James Wallace putting on row 1 of the grid, certainly wringing the performance out of the car in qualifying. He was just 1300ths away from pole, 1400ths away from pole. Caleb Sumit in third, and a 10th away, Alexandra Vateva in 4th place. So we are ready to go here in Dubai. 14 laps, maximum time limit of 30 minutes. And the cars are all on the grid. Green flag is shown at the back of the grid. We are ready to go racing in Dubai. Race number 5 of the Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East. The revs rise, they wait for the lights to change, and away we go. Good strong start from James Wallace on the inside of the front row, but he is on the dirty part of the track as Taichi Watarai, the bright yellow nose, keeps the door firmly closed, but Wallace down the inside, challenging with dusty tyres, he goes through, and the 2 Saudi racing cars, Saud Al-Saud and Khalid Al-Ahmadi, swarming up from row 3 of the grid to go 3rd and 5th as the leaders continue to squabble through turns 3 and 4, and then left into 5. And it is James Wallace who has the early lead from Taichi Watarai. 14 laps of the Dubai Autodrome, and this looks like being an absolute humdinger right from the start. Taichi Watarai, not used to following much this season. Try and figure out which of the 2 Saudi racing cars. It's Khalid Al-Ahmadi with the green door mirrors, I think, who's up to 3rd with that green and white car. And here comes the challenge down at the end of the back straight into turn 10. Around the outside goes Watarai, and that's a long way round on the hairpin. There was contact there. Watarai out on the very dusty runoff, comes on behind Al-Ahmadi. James Wallace with the lead, up to 2nd place now. Caleb Sumit, the young Aussie, yellow and red of the DHL, but he's now got Taichi Watarai back in front of him, so Watarai somehow managed to get back in front. Okay, so here's down the back straight to turn 10, and Watarai on the outside. There was definitely a touch between the 2 cars. James Wallace stays on track. Taichi Watarai ran out wide, came back on and managed to cling on to second place. Undoubtedly, the stewards will take a look at that, as they always do with any contact, and decide whether or not there is a case to be answered later on. Cristian Andero there, slipping to the tail of the group in the Masters category, away from the start. Peter Brecker leads from Mark J. Thomas, but it is James Wallace out front by 1.9 seconds from the battle for second place. Caleb Sumich, Taichi Watarai on the inside. Watarai, does he hang on to second? Caleb Sumich is still there. Yellow and red of the DFL car of Caleb Sumich. And he was 8 thousandths of a second ahead of Taichi Watarai at the line. James Wallace with a little bit of a moment there, under braking as he turned in. As they sweep out onto the back straight for the second time. Here's the battle for second place. Caleb Sumich, car number 14, the red and yellow, just ahead of Taichi Watarai. And the front runners with their headlights on. It's not exactly dark, but the sun has set below the horizon. And James Wallace, the leader. Caleb Sumich under pressure, down into turn 10. Taichi Watarai not going outside this time. He comes inside. Has he outbraked himself? No, he hasn't. Takes second place. Caleb Sumich in third. And then the two now Saudi racing cars. Khaled Al Ahmadi, the first of the green and white machines. He's in fourth, ahead of Saud Al Saud, who has got ahead of Alexandra Vateva on that lap. Vateva, the blue car, right behind Saud Al Saud. As we look at Khaled Al Ahmadi chasing Caleb Sumich. And Al Ahmadi with a good head of speed here. Really steaming up behind. Caleb Sumich running out a little wide, outbraked himself a fraction. Al Ahmadi trying to go outside, inside, outside. Didn't quite work for him. But this is a great looking battle shaping up here. And there is the race leader in the distance. James Wallace leads as they complete 2 laps. Second place, Taichi Watarai, and third, everybody else on the left-hand side. It's the red and yellow of Caleb Sumich, then Khaled Al Ahmadi trying to go around the outside, turn 1. That doesn't work for him. And this little battle will drop them back from Taichi Watarai, which is probably the last thing that James Wallace needs. Wallace would have loved Watarai to get held up trying to battle Caleb Sumich. There is James Wallace, and there's Taichi Watarai. So we'll make a note of the gap. Was 2.54 seconds at the end of the last lap. Let's see if Watarai, now that he's clear of Sumich and Al Ahmadi, these two, see if he can start to make inroads. James Wallace, though, fastest sector 1 of the race. Now, there is a slight danger here that if you burn your tyres early, the others come back to you and you might have a little less to defend with. But, of course, if they've been battling in the first couple of laps and you get away, then they have also been using their tyres. So that might be the case for Taichi Watarai. Brief yellow flag period at turn 10 on the end of the back straight. Quite sure what's happened there. Mark J. Thomas up to second now, Cristian Andero up to third, so it looks like Nikola Petrovic, who's still shown on the timing there as Kaiser Sos. SOZ. Now then, who have we lost? That's Josh Berry, looks like he had a moment there as well. And the first of our track limits warnings, and that actually for Nikola Petrovic. So James Wallace with a new fastest lap, 2 minutes 1.599, 2 minutes 1.583 for Taichi Watarai. So the gap gone out from 2.4 to 2.54. Cedric Chassang also with a warning for track limits. He's leading Pro-Am. There he is, just the back of the shot, orange, white and black. Max Much-Lechner has moved up ahead of Banksy, but not in the Pro-Am class. Much-Lechner is in currently 7th place in the Pro category. Young Josh Berry, the 16-year-old newcomer to Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East, with a mistake, dropping himself down the order. Track limit warning for Taichi Watarai as well. Second car in your shot. You saw him running out quite wide there. Not as wide as anybody else. In fact, not as wide as everybody else there. Pretty much everybody running out wide. As they come out of turn 9 onto the backstretch, trying to get that slingshot onto the straight, and then down into turn 10 through the hairpin, turn 10 and 11. There was Banksy. You see quite a lot of dark stripes being left on the road as they pick up speed out to turn 10 through to 11. There's Alexandra Vateva clinging to the tail of Saad Al Saud, not in a position yet to try and make a move. And actually, Vateva, a little slower in sector 1, a little quicker in sector 2 than Saad Al Saud. So closing in towards the latter part of the lap. Now, is that going to give her an opportunity as they come out onto the front straight? Well, from corner 15 down through 16 and then sweeping out onto the front straight. She's not badly placed, she's not quite close enough though. Caleb Sumich goes across the line. Personal best from everybody at the moment. Tyres are still giving off their best. Just about everybody setting better laps. Taichi Watarai now with the fastest race lap of all. Chassang just setting a new fastest lap in the Pro-Am. Krista Andero now up to second in the Masters category with the new fastest lap as well. Joy 3.9, the fastest Masters driver. Peter Brecker in front of him, 2:04.0. So the gap between the two of them is just a little under a quarter of a second. As we look a little further forward at the battle between the second white and green car, Saad Al Saud, and Alexandra Vateva. So James Wallace leading by 2.5 seconds still at the beginning of this lap. Taichi Watarai just a whisker quicker in sector 1 on this lap as well. So Wallace may just be having a moment or two to allow his tyres to have a breather. Saad Al Saud with no such respite. Second of the white and green cars, there he is, car number 3 with Alexandra Vateva and the splendid yachting machine right behind him. She is worrying the Saudi driver like a dog with a bone. Vateva didn't quite see what happened to her in the first couple of corners, but she started 4th on the grid, ended up 6th, so the two Saudi drivers had a really good start, mugged almost everybody. Caleb Sumich just recovered to get back in front of Khaled Al Ahmadi. So Sumich in the DHL car, there he is, still running in 3rd ahead of the two green and white Saudi cars. And Taichi Watarai with a 3rd track limits warning. Watarai will need to be careful, otherwise he's going to end up with penalties. New fastest lap of her race for Alexandra Vateva. And there she is in the blue machine, sponsored by Splendid Yachting. She is all over the back of Saad Al Saud. Not quite close enough yet. James Wallace, our race leader. And Taichi Watarai now down to just 2 seconds behind. Watarai a whisker quicker again on the first sector of the lap. And a new fastest race lap, 2:01.475. Last time round for Taichi Watarai with the bright yellow nose, and that is about half a second quicker than the 2:01.9 of James Wallace, the race leader. 9 laps to go of our 14 laps, 11 minutes of the maximum 30 have elapsed, so we should be good. We've got 1/3 of the time gone, and we're already on lap 6 of 14. So we're getting close to the midway point, and so far it has been nice and close and clean. First track warning limits for Josh Berry as he recovers from his earlier incident. And Cedric Chassang has also had a moment because he's dropped right to the tail of the field. Now, he was leading in the Pro-Am category quite handily, but he's dropped down the order and is now running behind the Masters class. So Banksy leads in Pro-Am. And the timing screen adjusts itself. Cedric Chassang has not had a problem. He's back up to 7th place. So the timing screen, the live timing I'm watching and the graphics that you're seeing do not necessarily relate to each other intimately. But Cedric Chassang seems to have had a timing glitch rather than anything else. Chris Randero, another new faster lap for the man who is second in the Masters category. As we watch our race leader, James Wallace, gap now down to under 1.8 seconds over Taichi Watarai. So in the last 3 laps, it has come down from 2.6 to 1.76 seconds. Watarai is closing at a rate that will get him there. And he's flashing the headlights as well. So Taichi Watarai, second in your shot, 2:01.8 last time round, 2:02.2 for James Wallace. So another 4 tenths found by Watarai on the last lap. And in sector 1, he was 4 tenths quicker than James Wallace as well. So if James Wallace is preserving his tyres, he might need that if the gap continues to come down at this rate. Caleb Sumi still third, ahead of the 2 green and white Saudi racing cars, Khaled Al Ahmadi and Saad Al Saud. And Alexandra Vateva now just fading off the back of Saad Al Saud on the last couple of laps. Maybe everything following closely in the slipstream of the Saudi car is starting to overheat a little bit for Vateva. Maybe she's just given herself and her tyres a moment or two of respite. The 2 Saudi drivers now very close together for 4th place. Khaled Al Ahmadi, the first of the 2, and then Saad Al Saud right behind him. There goes Caleb Sumich, there's Al Ahmadi, and there is Al Saud. And the gap is down under a second between the leaders, James Wallace and Taichi Watarai. Then Caleb Sumich ahead of Khaled Al Ahmadi and Saad Al Saud, and Alexandra Vateva in 6th position. So we're not seeing much of Cedric Chassang. He's 3 seconds behind Vateva. He's leading our Pro-Am class from Banksy. Peter Brecker leading in Masters by 1.1 from Chris Randero. So we might get a sort out there in the final lap or so. On lap 8 of 14. So 7 down. And at the end of this, there will be 6 to go. And there's your lead. Nothing like the yawning gap that it was earlier on, is it? When Watarai was just ahead of Caleb Sumich, the 3rd car in your shot. Sumich has dropped his pace a little because he's being harassed by Khaled Al Ahmadi and can't necessarily take the perfect racing line, but the Saudi driver quite so close behind him. And there, car number 3, Saad Al Saud. Alexandra Vateva in 6th spot, clinging to that little queue. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, pretty much all together. Caleb Sumich opens up a tiny little bit more over Khaled Al Ahmadi on this lap. And James Wallace, 1:29.0, up to the end of the 2nd sector. His last lap, 2:02.49, 2:01.69 for Watarai, the chaser of the race leader. Josh Berry still down in 12th place, or 8th of the pro cars. After that error early on, we didn't see it on camera, but there were brief yellow flags at turn 10, which I'm assuming is where he misjudged the braking at the end of the long back straight. The back straight longer than the front straight, and the lead gap remains at 3/4 of a second. James Wallace responding to Taichi Watarai, 2:02.56 compared to 2:02.38 on that last lap. So Watarai closing by just 1600ths of a second. And so Wallace finding a little bit to respond to the fast approaching Japanese driver, but maybe not enough. A little further back, there is Max Muchlechner, easy for me to say, chasing Cedric Chassang, as the leaders are now a little over half a second apart down at turn 10. We're starting to get into the position where Watarai knows that laps are not running out especially fast. There'll be 5 to go at the end of this. And he does have that speed advantage over James Wallace. So let's see if he can make it pay. Alexandra Vateva has rested her tyres and herself and her car and is now all over Saud Al Saud again. You can see how Al Saud has dropped back from his teammates Khaled Al Ahmadi, and that is because he is being harassed by Alexandra Vateva. This is the battle for 5th position, 3rd and 4th immediately in front of them. So Alexandra can see everything, and here's the challenge for the lead. Taichi Watarai on the inside of James Wallace. Very close indeed as they came into the final corner. It is still Wallace who leads, but just by a whisker, 1600ths of a second. So Taichi Watarai closed down 6/10 on the last lap. Now he's in position to try and attack. 5 to go. This is going to be a long time for James Wallace to hang on. He got away early on. Watarai, we've seen from earlier races, doesn't mind getting his sleeves rolled up. He is a very combative racer. He will attack inside, outside, anywhere he thinks there's half a sniff of a chance. And so James Wallace now defending hard, and that's going to make him slower onto the straights than Watarai. In this instance, it is easier to be the hunter than the hunted, because you can force errors out of the man in front, but you also get a chance to see what the car in front is doing and then make your move as a result. Now, the problem for Watarai is he was going quicker than Wallace, and now he can't because he's stuck behind the British driver. Looks around the outside, 10 into 11. Does he get through on the inside? Alexandra Vateva all over Saud Al Saud as well. No change in the lead. James Wallace rebuffed the talons of Taichi Watarai, and Al Saud doing the same here for Vateva. She's not able to get closer, and there is the lead battle. 1600ths of a second at the beginning of the lap, and they are very evenly matched now, but Taichi Watarai running in hard behind James Wallace, trying to cut through on the inside. That didn't quite work for him, but it shows. Oh, and Wallace makes a mistake under braking into turn 16, and there's contact, and Watarai half spins. And Taichi Watarai, and there's contact on the right rear of James Wallace's car. Watarai recovering his composure, but he'll rejoin behind Cedric Chassang and Max Muchlechner. And there he goes. All right, well, he is smoking, and so too is James Wallace. Watarai also looks to be smoking from the right. Wallace was blowing smoke from the right. So Watarai comes in deep. Wallace makes a mistake under braking, runs out wide, tries to close the door. There is contact. A little bit of Wallace's car flies off, and Watarai trying to avoid the contact, spinning away on the inside of the circuit. And there's Mark Thomas and Nikola Petrovic at the tail of the field, and James Wallace at the other end. He is still out front. Well, it doesn't look like that there is too much tyre rub. There's not too much smoke coming off there, but that certainly slowed him. Caleb Sumich just 2.6 seconds back. Khaled Al Ahmadi, the first of the green and white cars, now in an overall podium position, as well as in the pro class. He's third, Saad Al Saad is fourth, Alexandra Vateva up to fifth place overall, as well as in pro. And then Cedric Chassang, the Pro-Am leader, in sixth position. Taichi Watarai has already made up 2 or 3 places, having rejoined. But it's going to be a long way back to the top. So Taichi Watarai, with that mistake from James Wallace, dropping down the order, and 6th place in the pro class. Cedric Chassang leading from Banksy in Pro-Am. And in the Masters category, it is still Peter Brecker from Chris Drandero, Mark J. Thomas and Nikola Petrovic. So the race leader stabilising the ship. 203.4 last time round though, 203.0 of Caleb Sumich, 203.5 of Khaled Al Ahmadi. Sumich seems to have found another gear now, and so he is chasing off after the race leader. And we're not seeing much tyre smoke, or any at all now, from James Wallace. So whatever was rubbing on the tyre after that clash with Watarai looks like it has sorted itself out. And Caleb Sumich, 203.0, half a second quicker than James Wallace on the last lap. Out to turn 9 they come down the back straight. Khaled Al Ahmadi with Saad Al Saad behind him, the 2 green and white cars, for 3rd place. Alexandra Vateva still there. So if by any stretch the 2 Saudi cars come together, then Vateva might be in with an overall podium here. Alexandra Vateva retired from race 1 after a collision in Bahrain, and that was with Taichi Watarai in the opening lap, as I recall. She finished 4th in race 2 and a 6th and a 5th in Qatar. There is the youngest driver in the field, Josh Berry, in the midst of the Masters class. Then Mark J. Thomas ahead of Nikola Petrovic, and Alessandra Vateva still harassing the 2 Saudi racing cars. James Wallace has eased away now from Caleb Sumich. 2.2 seconds is the gap first to second. 12 laps completed on lap 13 of 14, and still with 6 minutes on the clock, 5.5 minutes on the clock, so we should get that done. Not going to be much meat on the bone, not going to be much time to spare, that's for certain. Alexandra Vateva on the penultimate lap. She knows that if she's going to get by Saad Al Saad, she needs to find something special. James Wallace ahead of Caleb Sumich, and the 3-way battle for the final podium spot. Khaled Al Ahmadi, the first of the 2 green and white cars, again just creeping away from Saad Al Saad. And that's because Vateva is making a nuisance of herself behind Saad Al Saad. He can't really focus on his teammate in front. At least he feels he can't, because Vateva is just threateningly close behind. Under braking into turn 10 though. Al Saad not immediately in the danger zone. So all of the cars still running. Taichi Watarai up to 6th position in the pro class, having passed Max Buch-Lechner, and Josh Berry having dropped down the order. Chris Drandero leading pretty much from the start of the race in the Masters class, and continues to do so. Saad Al Saad clinging on to 4th place. James Wallace sweeping down the hill through the final corners of the lap, and then out onto the straight, past the busy grandstands again. Caleb Sumich 2.2 seconds back. There was tyres squealing under the camera. Does that mean that James Wallace or Caleb Sumich has made a mistake? Well, there is Sumich, so no, but there were yellow flags briefly. Now, whether that was under that camera or not remains to be seen. Well, there's James Wallace. So if he did have a little moment under braking, and it looks like he might have done, that didn't look like 2.3 seconds between the two. He seems to have survived. Sweeping round through this tight infield section and out of corner 9 onto the back straight. The first sector times for James Wallace and Caleb Sumich looked pretty similar, so I'm not sure there was too much of a drama there. Maybe just a tiny little lock-up as the tyres are starting to feel the pace. Just saw Cedric Chassang in the white, orange and black of Team GP Elite, our Pro-Am leader. Taichi Watarai still away behind him. He's not going to catch him before the line. It's not going to make much difference to his pro standing position though, as Chassang is Pro-Am. And on this final lap of the race, James Wallace with everything under control. Yellow flags again at turn 7, and then they remain out, in fact. So who has had a problem there? Track is clear now, so we will leave that. Aha! So it looks as though Nikola Petrovic is the man who had a problem, and indeed he did. Looping spin. Racing under his nom de plume, nom de guerre, Kaiser Sos on the windscreen. Like Nikola Petrovic, it's his given name. And at the checkered flag, James Wallace taking victory in the end by 2 seconds from Caleb Sumich, with Khaled Al Ahmadi and Saud Al Saud. 3rd and 4th for Saudi Racing, and Alexandra Vateva, despite harassing Saud Al Saud all the way through the race, in 5th position there. Cedric Chassang in 6th overall, taking the Pro-Am class, but 6th in Pro is Taichi Watarai, with Max Much-Lechner in 7th and Josh Perry 8th in the Pro-Am class, in the Pro class. And the Masters winner, Christian Andero from Peter Brecker, Mark Thomas and Nikola Petrovic. That last lap spin on the way to the checkered flag. So James Wallace qualified 2nd, finished 1st. And that's what Caleb Sumich did in race 1 in Qatar before the Christmas break. Sumich taking 2nd place here. And he was 2nd in race 2 in Qatar, so 3 consecutive podiums for the young Australian, and showed good pace in the season opener in Bahrain as well, tracks that he is not familiar with, but he's shown great pace in that DHL car, and now with the results to back it up. James Wallace with the win for M-Tech competition. Taichi Watarai, for the first time, not on the podium in this Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East season. So undoubtedly the stewards will take a look at the incident between Wallace and Watarai on the opening lap, but we will wait and see. I think right at the beginning of the race, it's always really hard, unless it is clearly, really cynically deliberate contact between drivers. It's always hard right at the beginning to penalise for contact between two cars. However, the stewards will have a look at all the video available, the telemetry as well from the cars, which shows throttle, brake position, steering angle and the rest. For now, however, it is James Wallace, car number 9, the M-Tech competition car, which heads into Parc Fermé with its driver as the race winner. See Caleb Sumich there, already out of the car in the yellow and red overalls, finishing in second place, and Saud Al Saud in third spot. Here is our Pro-Am winner. So Cedric Chassang, he is the Pro-Am winner ahead of Banksy, and our Masters winner, Krista Andero. So M-Tech competition coming out on top in Pro and in Masters. And Team GP Elite, the winners in the Pro-Am category. So plenty for the drivers to enjoy in this Dubai Autodrome. Real combination of medium and slow speed corners, high speed corners, and the two long straights here as well, giving overtaking opportunities. And they will get a chance to do it all again tomorrow. Another 30-minute qualifying session to set the grid for race 2. And that will be at 11:30 local. Qualifying begins at 11:30 local time, and that is 07:30 Greenwich Mean Time. And race 2 begins at 14:30 local. We'll be on air at 14:15 with cars on the grid, and that will be 10:15 Greenwich Mean Time. So wherever you are watching, you can catch up with the live stream again. And it'll be 10:15 GMT for the race itself, and we will be on just before qualifying begins at 11:30 local, 07:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So 30 minutes of qualifying and a 30-minute race, and expect to see James Wallace and Taichi Watarai very much to the fore in both qualifying and the race. Certainly they have shown the pace today to be the likely dominant factors in the field. So a chance once more for the fans to explore a little bit more of Dubai Autodrome and environs, and a chance to come back tomorrow and see what else will happen. It'll be interesting to see just what transpires in the stewards' room. The incident between our top 2 drivers in the first lap, noted by the stewards and will be investigated. James Wallace made a great start to get in front of Taichi Watarai early on, and then towards the end of the opening lap, Watarai went around the outside of the turn 10 hairpin. There was a little contact between the two of them. Watarai came back on in second place, dropping briefly behind Caleb Sumich, and then recovering his composure. And from there, he started to hunt the leaders, or the leader, as Khaled Al Ahmadi battled with Sumich all the way through. Saud Al Saud, his teammate, holding off Alexander Vateva for the entire race distance. Little moment, dropping Josh Berry down the order, and then in the closing stages, 3 or 4 laps from home, contact again as Watarai challenged Wallace, and was left in a half spin. He dropped towards the tail of the field. Nikola Petrovic spinning at the end. James Wallace winning the race by a couple of seconds from Caleb Sumich and Khaled Al Ahmadi. So hopefully get a chance to see the drivers up on the podium. And trophies will be awarded on the results as they stand. Should they need to be renegotiated after a visit to the stewards, then that will happen at a slightly later stage. So there is the car of James Wallace. See Caleb Sumich just coming into shot at the back, running through. Khaled Al Ahmadi there, and Cedric Chassang as well with the beard. So our class winners and overall podium finishers, I think, are pretty much all there. Looks like that might well be the legs of James Wallace there. So cars will be scrutineered. Certainly the podium finishers and the class winners will be scrutineered after the podium ceremonies, and then the teams will get a chance to re-prep them for tomorrow's qualifying. So they'll be looking at fresh tyres for qualifying for tomorrow, and any other adjustments the drivers want to do. Qualifying and racing are very different things. Obviously, in qualifying, you tend to be on your own as much as possible, and your focus is purely on setting as perfect a lap as you can to get the most speed out of the car and on fresh tyres. Whereas in the race, you don't have the freshest of tyres. There's James Wallace, our race winner. Caleb Sumich with him. And in the race, you find out a lot more about the car, particularly on full of fuel. Now, of course, there was free practice. There were several practice sessions, but once you get into a race and you're battling everybody, then it becomes a lot more intense. It becomes a very different beast, the car. And so then after race one, you are definitely going to have feedback. Maybe we could make it do a bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And certainly you would think for James Wallace, the way that Taichi Watarai was able to close him down pretty much throughout the race, Wallace might be looking for a little bit more in terms of balance, maybe being able to get a little bit more out of the ABS, out of the traction control. Certainly looks a couple of times like he managed to outfox the ABS, or he had it turned so far down that in fact he was able to make little errors under braking, particularly down at turn 10, a couple of times when he had Watarai right with him. Again, he's not entirely unfamiliar with the Carrera Cup cars, although it will be his first time with ABS and traction control, which has not been used in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. This new generation of Cup car, which will be used in the Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup this season, 2026 Mobil 1 Super Cup season, will be using ABS and traction control for the first time, in line very much with Porsche's GT3 product. GT3 being a customer racing category rather than a pro racing category, does have traction control and ABS. And to bring the Super Cup cars into line with the GT3 cars that Porsche produces, the Super Cup cars will also have traction control and ABS. And this season, the Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East cars are sort of the vanguard of that, if you like, the new generation cars with ABS and traction control. So it's something that drivers from other Carrera Cups or from the Super Cup will not have been used to up until this stage, unless they also ply their trade in GT3 racing somewhere, and that's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility. An awful lot of Super Cup and Carrera Cup, particularly Carrera Cup Deutschland drivers, do race in GT3 categories around the globe on a fairly regular basis. And of course, Porsche's GT3 product, slightly modified to match the rule set, in action in Daytona this weekend in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series, the Daytona 24 Hours Again, there is no such thing as an off-season in the winter anymore for sports car racing. With the Gulf 12, Dubai 24, and then we're still in January, for goodness sake. Christmas is not even a month ago, and we are into the Daytona 24 hours. That begins shortly, not too long away in the US, and continues through to Sunday afternoon. And it's still January. We are still getting through the last of the Christmas pudding and the Christmas cake, and the racing season proper is with us. Not just Winter Series, the Daytona 24 hours, the start of the IMSA WeatherTech series that will run all the way through to Petit Le Mans in September. And of course, everything else starts to yawn and stretch and gradually wake up as well as spring approaches, slightly more slowly in northern climes than it is a little further south, but there we go. So as we wait for the officials to get the podium ceremony underway, got a chance to think about the final couple of race weekends coming up. Of course, we've got two standalone weekends for Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East here in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi next weekend. So next weekend with a similar format, qualifying 1, race 1 on the Saturday, and qualifying 2 and race 2 on the Sunday. The season opener in Bahrain is the one because of constriction of the calendar, where we had one qualifying session for both grids, where the fastest lap that the car sets, fastest legal lap at least, is pole position for race 1, and the second fastest lap, again subject to being within track limits, setting pole position for race 2. So next weekend in Abu Dhabi, 4th race weekend of 6 for Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East. So these two race weekends,
yes,
standalone weekends
like
for
it. Today we
Porsche Carrera
saw
Cup.
a
Here we
huge
go.
battle on the track. Lots going on, lots of racing, also more to come tomorrow, but it's been an exciting day. And I'm here, Zara Faruqi, going to present your podium winners for today. So we have a lot of categories to go through. We will go through the overall, the Pro-Am, Masters, and the GCC category, as well as the team winner. Who's excited to hear the winners? So let's start off with the 3rd place winners. A lot happened today, but I'm excited to announce the 3rd place winner who locked down that podium spot. So let's cheer for dun 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 dun, Khalid Al-Ahmadi from Saudi Racing. Welcome. Well done. And now we call on to the second place, who absolutely pushed the limits and kept us guessing till the end. Let us welcome Caleb Sumich from DHL team. Good sportsmanship over there. And now we go to the first overall winner. This is what we were waiting for. The first overall winner, it's no other than James Wallace from MTech Competition. Unstoppable performance from everyone today. Everyone on the track did their best, and James Wallace takes P1. And now we have James Wallace is not only the overall winner, but he is also the rookie winner for today as well. Amazing. Now we can bring up some guests to award our P3, P2, and P1 their awards. First off, we'll start off with Mark Sinclair, General Manager of Porsche Center, Dubai and Northern Emirates. Mark Sinclair, would you like to come up and give our P1, James Wallace, the award? Thank you very much. Now we go to P2. It's no other than the CEO of Porsche Middle East and Africa, Manfred Brunel. Lastly, we have the Director of Sales in Porsche Motorsport, Michael Dreiser. Well done, top three. Now we have our Rookie Winner Award, no other than for James Wallace. Please bring up the CEO of Strat Trader, our new series partner, Peter Karsten.
Make it louder! Well done.
Well done to our top three for our overall Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East for race 1. Now let's take a group picture if everyone wants to step up and take a lovely group picture. Big smiles, everyone, let's give them a cheer. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your presence. And now we can go on to the other categories. So many categories to go through. But now we are in the Pro-Am. But before that, let me catch a quick interview if James Wallace is ready for a quick interview for his overall win. James Wallace, would you like to step up on stage for an interview? He's too busy celebrating, guys. He's ready to go and celebrate with the team. James Wallace, join me right here. First of all, amazing race out there. Very close with Tai Chi, who is right behind you for a little while, but then he went back in the grid for that spin out. But well done, amazing job. How do you feel about the overall race?
Yeah, I mean, this is my second time here now in Dubai, and it's been a great experience. I love coming back to the Porsche Carrera Cup Middle East. It's a championship which is always on the bucket list, and to be back is amazing. And last year I came second in the first race, and this year I learned from my mistake I made last year and managed to go up one more step. So yeah, super happy and great to be on debut with the team. MTech have done a great job all weekend, and thanks to all of them, because without them I wouldn't be here. And yeah, it feels privileged to race for them.
Now it's a big race today. You took the win, but what's your secret for tomorrow?
Hopefully the same, but just a bit faster. We'll work with the team tonight, have a look where we can improve on myself and in the car, and hopefully we get the good launch. Hopefully pole tomorrow though. Yeah, I didn't like being second on the grid today, but yeah, hopefully we can go again, go faster tomorrow.
Well done. Let's give a big round of applause for James Wallace, everybody. Amazing job, great job, and I will see you tomorrow, hopefully back in P1. Now we go to our second category, Pro-Am. two racers that are winning today here. So let us give a round of applause for our second in the Pro-Am category, Banksy from 7x7 Japan. Banksy, the name itself sounds remarkable and legendary. Now we go to our first in the Pro-Am category from Team GP Elites, Cedric Chasang. Well done to both P1 and P2 in the Pro-Am category. Can we invite back up Mark Sinclair to give the P1 his award? Thank you, Mark. Moving on to P2, Manfred Brownie to give us the P2 award in the Pro-Am category. Now if they both want to step up on the same platform to take a group picture. Big smiles, big cheers. Today was a brilliant day. Lots of racing happening, lots of close calls, but we are here for the podium. And now we go on to the next category for the Masters. And we have three winners for today for the Masters. We start off with P3. We have from M3L team, Mark Thomas. That's a celebration that we needed. That enthusiasm is what we need. Thank you, Mark. Going back to P2, we have no other than from GD Sports Technology, Peter Brecka. And we now have the unstoppable performance standing on top. We proudly present Krister Andero from MTech Competition. Let's get a group, before we get to the group photo, apologies, let's go give you your awards, because that's what you're here for, right? So we start off with P1, Mark Sinclair, back on the stage, giving our P1 winner their award. Swiftly moving on to our P2, we have Manfred Brunei from the Porsche Middle East and Africa CEO awarding our P2 winner. Now welcoming back Michael Dreiser to give us our P3 his award.
One more.
What a drive from all three of them. Thank you so much. Now we can go to that group photo. So everyone step up and big smiles and let's give them a little cheer. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ooh, and we get a cap thrown at the crowd. We love to see that. Now we move on to our second to last category, the GCC category, where we have two winners. We have in second place, Saud Al Saud from the Saudi racing team. And now we introduce our first P1 in the GCC category from Saudi racing team yet again, Khalid Al Ahmadi. If Mr. Mark Sinclair can do the honors of walking back those steps to give our P1 their award. And if our amazing CEO of Porsche Middle East and Africa, Mr. Manfred Brunel, can come and give us the award. Now we come to the end, the team winner category. Only one spot for this team winner. And I think we all know who it is. It is no other than M-Tech, and from M-Tech we have Magnus Carlsen. M-Tech trying to invite the entire team up, but everyone coming up. Well done, M-Tech. Big celebration for everyone in the team. Congratulations, M-Tech. Now, if we can give them their award. They're already posing for pictures, as they should, and celebrating, but let's bring the award up from Mr. Mark Sinclair. And then they can pose with the pictures. Oh. Peter Karsten, thank you so much for presenting the award, and congratulations, M-Tech, for a brilliant, amazing job in your team. Now, all those awards have been announced, but I want to hear from the crowd. How has your day been with the Porsche Carrera Cup in Middle East 2026? Everyone a little bit tired from the racing, I can see. But congratulations to all the drivers out there, all the teams, and everyone in the crowd today. Thank you for coming to support the Porsche Carrera Cup. And thank you for the team behind the scenes making this happen. We appreciate our sponsors and everyone here to make this event happen. Now, everyone, that's from my end. I'm Zara Faruqi, your podium host, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.